Good afternoon, everybody. And here is our third year in a row for the panel, our dedicated panel within If Italians Festival, which is called A Drink With, which is a friendly chat with executives from our industry from different continents. So welcome here today to Ananya Rao, a super talented Indian creative strategist from Dentsu Creative, who just won a Grand Prix Titanium with one of my beloved campaigns this year in Cannes 2022. And please also welcome to Toby Treyer and Laurie Howell from Droga 5 New York, recognized internationally with multiple Grand Prix, Best in Shows, and D&amp Black Pencil. Hi, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, guys.
Good.
Hi.
Hi to
Nice
all
to
of
see
you.
you again.
So my very first question to you is, what are you drinking right now? Ananya.
I wish it was a hot cup of chocolate, but unfortunately it's just diluted tea. So I think this will have to do for now.
Good. What about you guys?
I've got an extra strong, very expensive cappuccino from just downstairs. I actually challenged someone to find a more expensive cappuccino. It costs $7.50.
Not bad. Okay.
Yeah, I've got a cup of tea as well. It's nice and early here, so we're still waking up over here in New York.
And I have a cup of tea as well, which is like a simple cup of tea, but like it's written, well, it was given by my son. It's written, "I love your dad jokes." I don't know if he was honest, but like, this is my cup. So today, we're having this panel with you, and thank you very much for being here today. And it's interesting that, well, all of you have something in common, even if you didn't know each other, Ananya from one side and Toby and Laurie from the other side. You both have the UK in common somehow, because you, Toby and Laurie, you were born in the UK, while you, Ananya, you just moved from India to London. So it's not like from Asia now, like you are in Europe or back again. And this leads me to my first question, which is, how was important for you to change city in order to have, for your career? I mean, Laurie?
Oh yeah. Well, I think it's been for us personally. It's been great. It's been very important for a number of reasons. I think we were really enjoying being in London. We were at Wyden's. We were having a really good time. And I think when we were asked to come and join Droga, I don't know. At the time we were tentative about it, and we didn't know if it was the right move. But I think looking back, it was the best thing we've ever done. I think principally because the strength in advertising, especially as creative people, is your difference. And although America's an English-speaking country and the markets are close, and there's a lot of respect from the US for the UK advertising industry, I think coming at America with a kind of English sensibility or a kind of European, more broadly, sensibility, especially around ideas and craft, I think that just set us up really well to land somewhere like Droga 5. And I think that, being on the inside of Droga 5, we've been there 7 years now. It's a company which is really receptive to like the type of thinking that we're good at. And I think that difference is really important. I'm sure everyone's felt that. It can obviously go two ways when you move countries. But yeah, I think it's been really important for us, and we're very grateful for that opportunity.
Good. What about you, Ananya? I mean, you just moved to London, right?
It's close to a month now, so I can't really speak much about whether it's good or bad, but so far so good. I definitely have my learnings from Asia. I think working in India and working with teams across Singapore, Australia, and all the other Asian countries, it's definitely helped me understand how to navigate chaos. So I think now it's time to hack into the UK and EMEA market to see if this is where I thrive. And Yeah, it's always about different perspectives, finding inspirations from different nook and corners. And I think London's been amazing this past 1 month in that. So hopefully, pretty optimistic about my journey here ahead.
Good. So we have many things I would like to share with our public today here. And let's start from the UK, and specifically from the British Museum, which is one of the campaign I feel is, on the one hand, is the strongest, and on the other hand, is the kindest campaign I've seen this year in Cannes. And it's called the Unfiltered History Tour, created together with Vice World News. So please, let's watch the campaign.
The British Museum is a public institution dedicated to human history, art and culture. Come discover over 80,000 works from around the world here in London. You are now viewing the Greagle Shield. Captain James Cook was a British event.
We're now looking at the Greagle Shield, which was taken from my people.
Collections in the British museums are premised on a simple idea. I'm proud of what my grandfather stole from yours.
The Rosetta Stone was not a discovery neither of the French, neither of the British. It was already discovered and reused in Egypt multiple times.
For us, it's not just a well-carved rock, it is a living ancestor.
This very important statue is on display in a museum thousands of miles away.
Say the British Museum is the world's largest receiver of stolen goods. We're launching an interactive tour of some of its most contested artifacts.
There is always a story behind every object that was made in the kingdom, and that is how we told our history.
There were two foreign powers in rivalry over Egypt. One of them won over the other, and they took the war spoils of the other.
I feel I've received a balanced narrative.
For many Assyrians, it was maybe the last time we could really stand up to people who were trying to bully us.
We sort of went around the world and took what we wanted, and it makes me feel a deep level of shame.
Museums around Europe are slowly realizing that exhibiting items taken by force hundreds of years ago from other countries is kind of gross. And it's about time. We can't change the past, but we can change how we engage with it in the present.
Wow. That's a wonderful campaign. That's an anti-colonial look of history through artifacts, voices from the community, and also kindness, which is the theme of our festival this year. So my question to Ananya, to you is how this idea came up to your mind. What's the insight or trigger for it?
So first of all, this was an 18-month campaign in the making. Within our teams, within the way we work at Dentsu, we have like this informal or candid flow of, inspiration. So if we find something we find that could be interesting, could be fun, or if it's just something funny we read, we usually have this habit of just sharing it around in our informal teams. And one such link on WhatsApp was of Empires of Dirt. It's this series of videos that Vice World News produced that basically spoke about how Europeans got rich at the expense of the rest of the world. And that just resonated with us. I think our very next step was just like, we want to do something about this. Let's get on call. So when we did get on call, we just kept throwing in ideas, which eventually didn't see the light of day. But like this one video from the series about how the British Museum is the largest collector of stolen goods really stood out to us. And there was just like a simple question raised, which was like, why don't most people know about this? Like we understood the sentence in a second. That's because we've grown up with textbooks that have actually told us what has happened to India in the past when it was colonized. But as we dug deeper, we realized that that's not the same narrative that's been presented in UK textbooks for that matter. Yeah. So we realized that this is not just a campaign about, vengeance or like, being attacky towards what's happened in our past, but rather this is an educative campaign where we're providing resources for people to educate themselves. We're providing representation for communities all across the globe, which is actually almost 1/3 of the world's population who was impacted by colonialism, to actually have a share of voice and to actually talk about it themselves, about what happened to their communities, their past. And that's what the entire insight of, like bringing people from a specific community, activists, researchers from Greece, from Australia, from India came about, because they are the experts in their fields. They've been fighting day in and day out for something that we assume is a matter of the past. But so many countries, so many communities across the world, whether it be the way we talk, the way we behave, colonialism is still somewhat integrated into our everyday lives. But the least we could do is put it out there in the world for people to either reflect upon themselves or at least feel respected in the way stories are being shared in the world.
I think you mentioned one thing. I think like for us as European, it's very important to face with our history and what we did to other communities. So I thought since the very beginning that this was like the right campaign in the right times. And by the way, for those who don't know it, it won the Titanium in Cannes this year. And the Titanium is like just for the campaigns that raise the bar to the next level. So my compliments, congratulations for it. And I would like to ask also Toby, like, what were your feelings when you had the chance to watch this campaign for the first time?
I mean, it's a really powerful campaign. Congratulations. It's quite amazing, really. What I love about it is it really challenges what you know to be true. And even though you're taking one part of the world we're living in, the British Museum, it applies to every aspect of life. And I just kind of wish this would exist across all parts of life, so people can kind of align on the real truth and therefore live their lives quite differently. The other thing I was struck by, just having worked on the New York Times for 5 years now, is what we do on the Times is we kind of get out of the way of the journalism and we kind of essentially try and just put the journalism on a pedestal. But what this is doing actually is it's almost a tool in itself. It's almost like a journalistic tool. It is the journalism, which I think is so powerful. And it's amazing you managed to kind of pull that off. So very impressive.
You just touched one theme which I think is very relevant, and it's about like the role of advertising in uncovering and telling the truth. So like I would like to, what do you think about it, like Laurie?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I mean, we like Toby says, we've been negotiating that kind of relationship for about 5 years, 6 years now. I can only speak for what we do. I think with the New York Times, obviously it centers around the truth, and all of the work has to be that. I think when you work with them, you realize that not just in the journalism, but even in the advertising, you can't compromise on their journalistic principles. So you're basically making advertising with the same rules that the journalists have, and that means there's no embellishment, there's no kind of metaphor, there's no opportunity for exaggeration, which are all the things that we use as advertisers, to make things compelling. And so the challenge for us has been to find creative ways to make work, to make films, to make activations, to make ideas that kind of don't get in the way of those principles. And it's a really difficult thing to do, but I think. Like all creativity, the more, constraints you have, almost the more creative you become. And I think that's something we've seen in the work that we've been doing with our teams, like when we have to follow those principles, great things come out of it. And I think, I don't know about other relationships with the truth and advertising. I think it's, another thing to say would be that, things are always stronger when they ring truer. And I think we give our audience, a lot of, sometimes we don't give them enough credit to smell out what's, the bullshit and like the rubbish. And I think that, we're lucky with the New York Times. They're built on, they have a very high level of integrity. But even with other work, where you are given the opportunity to have metaphor, storytelling, other ways of doing it, I still think you have to come back to some form of truth. So I think that relationship's constantly under review, and it's definitely something that we found a lot of fun.
It's amazing to me. Personally talking, when I was young, I wanted to be a journalist, and then I moved to the other side, which is communication advertising, and I think you found somehow a link between the two, which is to me amazing. And you just introduced the second campaign I would like to share with you today, which is probably the most of us we had already clapped our hands for it, and it's a campaign I completely remember the feeling of the whole palais when you just won the Grand Prix with this campaign. I think it was in 2019, right? 18 or 19, okay. So here's our second video, and it's for the New York Times, Truth is Worth It.
There's been reports that you are considering separating children from their mothers at the border.
Only if the situation requires it.
So if you thought the child was endangered,
sure.
That's the only circumstance to which you would separate.
Can't imagine doing it otherwise.
It's Caitlin Dickerson from the New York Times calling you back. You maybe your first and last name? Caitlin Dickerson.
To call one woman to ask her about a couple of cases of specific children.
I'm an immigration reporter here at the Times. This isn't the only case. Please be in touch as soon as possible. I know that's not true. It's Caitlin Dickerson here at the Times. We can talk by landline phone. I can meet you at your house. And the shelters really don't know what to do with them. Very little documentation. We're sorry. But I know that's not true. I'm an immigration reporter here at the Times. Deadline is noon tomorrow. But I have this number. I just tell me if you've seen this number. I just confirm this. I just got another person at DHS to confirm this.
That's a great campaign. This is something really great. I mean, and also it makes me think it takes a long time, as you said, as you wrote, to do good journalism. And so how much time does it take to shaping a Grand Prix? And also, I would also, what's the process? Is it one single person? Is it an intuition? Is it an idea? Is it crafting? Is it a couple or a team? And Ananya, you already answered a bit. You told me it took 18 months for your campaign, right?
Yeah, 18 months and over 100 people across the globe to make this campaign possible. Right. This was the first time we had historians act as creative directors, because we realized we didn't have actual factual evidence of how scenes of crime looked and shaped. So we had new people taking on new roles, people wearing multiple hats. And also, forgive me, I'm still speechless from the previous case study I just watched. So congratulations on this beautiful piece of work. But yes, it takes a village to make campaigns happen, passion projects happen that eventually change behavior and the way people have been thinking all these years.
And Toby, how much time did it take for your campaign? I mean,
all in all, it took a very long time from when we were briefed to when the last film came out. It did range a little bit, because in some examples there was, for example, there was a campaign about Trump's taxes that we found out they were investigating a couple of weeks before. So in that example, we had a couple of weeks to kind of write the script, get the script through the journalist, interview the journalists, edit it, and put it together and get it out. So it came out about the same time as the journalism itself. But then other examples, like there was one about ISIS, and that one we actually made first, but couldn't come out for another 8 to 10 months because the Times was actually worried about the safety of the journalists, and if we were to launch this piece while the journalists were still in the country, they were very worried about their kind of well-being. So that one took a long time, and we had a lot more time to craft it. But in terms of actually making, like the making of it, it was obviously a huge team effort. But kind of to build on what Laurie was saying, it had to be held to the same standards of the journalism itself. So the journalists had to approve it. We had to sit down with the journalists on multiple occasions, find out everything about their experience, what they did, what they ate, what time they went to sleep, all the little details. So we could kind of start to really see what life was like as a journalist. And then once you kind of get better understanding of that, then you can start to kind of write these pieces. And that in its own right, not just the writing itself, but the design of it was hard because of the way that the text went from one side of the screen to the other meant a lot of the scripts we wrote went completely off the screen. And so we figured out a way of writing it in, actually in text edit of all things, on the Mac. And we set all the fonts the same, like I think it was size 9 in Cheltenham. And we wrote the scripts in a little box like this, and we did that for hours and hours and hours, kind of constantly rewriting it, developing it, showing it to the journalists, going back, rewriting it.
What is
and it was a really long process. In fact, like sometimes for example, there was in the ISIS film, there was one line in it that was about a kid's backpack with explosive powder in it. And we weren't allowed to say powder. So we had to go and we fought for about 2 weeks about what we called it. And until we could finally settle on something that was factually correct. And so that was the kind of rigor that we had to go into every single line and every single word. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the kind of process and how long and how hard it was to write.
That's a huge story. I mean, I hope we have many young talent guys and girls here in our here in Milano, and I hope they heard your voice, because I think you told a couple of very interesting things. Both your agencies, like Dance Creative from the one side, and also Dragify, which is part of Accenture Song now, you have been investing a lot on creativity, and I would like to jump on the next question, which is I know creativity, investing in creativity is very important, and you demonstrated it through your campaigns, and I would like also to ask you how it's important today to do so, a very quick answer. I mean, in our years in which data, tech, and everything is coming back up, is it creativity is still important?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's aimed at me. I think it's yes, is the simplest answer. I think we are, everything's becoming more data-driven, technology-driven for sure. But there's no substitute for that leap that you make, and that kind of that. I think. I like to think of us as our human advantage, against AI is that we are the best context machines in the world.
Absolutely.
We have the ability to absorb, our own life and then put that into the work. And I think that's what breeds the creativity for creative people. So you can't really substitute that. And I think we're all humans, and that leap will obviously connect with other people, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do. So I'm not really worried about it. Obviously being part of Accenture Song allows us to access building technology, but I think at Dragify we see it as quite a pure form still.
I think you said one thing which is very important. The context really matters, And we as human beings are the only one who really can like go deep into the context and understand it like in a human way, you know. And I would like through that, like I would like to pass and to tell and to show also people our third video of today, which is about the role of journalism. And it's like it has a lot. It talks about the context, which is different, because like it's the same brand, still New York Times, but some years later. And I would like to show you the video, the campaign that you did just this year.
You guys take a class? I don't know.
Here's what my 2 weeks to Notre Dame on Thursday morning, 4.5. Let me get this straight.
I don't know.
It's been 7 days.
I ain't slept since yesterday. Bro, I love you, man. Who else they call home? Time to go. I love it.
Well, also this campaign was internationally recognized this year, and my quick question is like, same brand, same like same story to tell, but different piece of advertising. So like, I think the context was different, you know. So any comment about it, Laurie or Toby?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's what had changed was with the Truth is Worth It campaign. We talked about the process of getting to the truth and the process and the journey the journalist goes on. And this one, the world had changed, as you mentioned. At the time that this launched, actually, was kind of in the middle of COVID. Everyone was living at home. The Black Lives Matter movement was kind of at its height, and this was essentially a way of showing how journalism can guide you and help you through these times. And that's from kind of big topics like how to talk about race, and also kind of smaller topics like how to cook pasta at midnight. And I think that not only did we show like the role of journalism in people's lives at that time, but we also showed the breadth of journalism that the New York Times had to offer. And that's something a lot of people don't realize. They think New York Times is just core news, like newsy news. But actually, they cover a wide range of topics for every part of your life.
It made me thinking a lot about what you said, like the role of journalism. I mean, when I first saw these two campaigns, at the end of the day, like, you were asking people to subscribe I mean, which is something easy, you know. But the way you did it, like by entering the deepest like need of people in uncovering the truth or being helped somehow by good journalism is great. Any comment by you, Ananya, about this campaign?
I'm big fans of both of them, so I'm speechless. I love it.
I am too.
I love it. And I think the way, I mean, Vice again was a journalistic organization, so we did have struggles with the way we went around with the messaging and the packaging. But I think the way these New York Times campaigns like approached it is very different and unique, which makes it stand out. So just a big fan.
I'm a big fan too, and I'm also a big fan of the next campaign we're going to see. You know, like sometimes communication can underline the changing of the society as we had the chance to see now, and the society and the background as well. But sometimes it can be also the engine of some changing, like in terms of culture, in terms of going forward for, I mean, looking new values, etc. And this is how I would like to introduce our last video for today, which is called The Better Half Cook by Swiggy Instamart. So here is the video.
Kofta is not at all Indian.
Stop using table salt in your cooking.
Chef 1, make sure you're wearing the left ear pod.
And Chef 2, wear the right one.
Hi, welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make the eggplant parmigiana. It is a delicious baked dish that is made from roasted eggplant. Okay, so this experiment is Let's start with a general sizzle of
Real nice one. You know, like, I'm not a good cook, and sometimes it happens like I give my other half the duty. But like since I watched it, really, I've started like to think and act differently, even though like my kids are not so happy for that. But like I think the idea of splitting, you know, like the duty is important, even though like for now the results are not so good. And any additional thought about it, like Ananya, how did it came out?
It's so funny where we're supposed to be in the times where everybody's woke, everybody knows what equality means, but it never transcends into the kitchen. This fact hit hard, especially during the middle of the pandemic, when we saw some of our female colleagues being overburdened with household chores as well as working, while our male colleagues had all the time in the world. So we're just like, what is the barrier? Like, what is stopping men from entering the kitchen? And then, you know, through conversations again, we realized that the onus of teaching men how to cook is again on the women. And with the age of the internet, with the age of resources, that doesn't need to be the case. Which we funneled down to an insight where for more than 1,000 years, cookbooks have been addressed to one person doing all the cooking.
Yeah.
And maybe that set like this subconscious understanding that cooking is a one person's job. So we're just like, if we have to make kitchens equal, we simply split the recipes. So it was like a very simple idea that we translated into different mediums and just packaged it in a way which was easy to educate a lot of men across the country.
It's great, and also I think like what you and also like all of you said, like somehow it seems that the pandemic gave us not only the necessity like of staying home, etc., but also like a new thoughts on one side on what's journalism, but also on the other hand, like what's how can people help the other half at home. So maybe, I don't know, like we'll see it in the future, but maybe we got something important from the pandemic as well. So we're going like to finish our chat in a few minutes, and let's imagine now we're talking with someone who's starting this fantastic job today. So we're in the kitchen of advertising, and let's see which are for you the 3 most important ingredients in 3 words. Laurie, you can start.
Oh, wow, okay. 3 words, so hard. I think coming back to the idea of difference, I really believe in. Your difference is your strength. So I'd say your difference, focus on that. Don't try and be like everyone else. Don't look at creative directors and try and do what they want you to do. Don't listen too much. So difference, don't listen, and hard work probably is a cliche, but it really is the only way. And I think like we're seeing more and more like our relationship with work is changing.
Yeah.
And you know, we can come onto it in a second, the idea of kindness, but I think it is the only way to get it out. So yeah.
Toby, in 3 words.
I'd say originality for me is hugely important. I think we're in an industry where everything's the same and the goal is to stand out. So I never understand why people start to copy what's been before or old campaigns. I'm a huge believer that everything we do should be original and new. And so that's a big one for me. Okay. Energy, I think, is important in both kitchen and advertising. It's easy to lose energy and be deflated, I think, on the journey. It's quite a wild ride, as everyone knows, but it's really important to keep that up, I think. And maybe integrity.
No, and also like maybe like also if you go to the cooking analogy, I think if you're learning to cook, like you need to be prepared to make a massive mess, and like for it to be like completely inedible at the end, and it's just like you or like your partner eating this thing which you're like silently hating. But now and again you're going to make something brilliant, but you're not going to get anywhere unless you do that. So I think like that's a big part of our process too. Like a bit of chaos, a bit of madness is important.
Yeah.
And Ananya, what for you? Which are your 3 words?
I think for me it's empathy, curiosity, and hunger. I think empathy comes from the point of inclusion, where you're understanding where another person's perspective or opinion is coming from. Curiosity, the more you dig deep, the more you find the real simple truth that your work is trying to answer. And hunger, I mean, if you're in this industry and if you're not hungry, I think it's time to switch.
Right. So I agree with all of you, I think. And for now, hopefully we don't have to cook anything. We just have to drink. So we have our drinks here, and it has been a pleasure to me to have you here today on this like digital stage. So like I'm here in Milano and you are in London and New York. And I hope you will be here maybe next year for joining us here in If Italian Festival. And thank you very much to Ananya Rao, and thank you to Laurie Howell and Toby Treyer. Congratulations for the work, for the careers till now, and let's cheer for your and our future. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you, everyone.
Ciao, guys. See you.
Ciao.